Good morning, good morning. We are at Great Awakening Coffee House that is located on Cape Cod, and it's on 20 Independence Drive in case you're here. And we happen to have a wonderful friend stop by, and I call him a friend because he's truly a friend. And he comes here once in a while, and we are so honored.
Changing the world starts with you and me, but I can't just do, gotta start with being. Got problems of my own, it's gonna take something more. Like I found my heart and the flame in my core. Cause changing the world starts with me and with you, but are we deaf to the noise, so our soul hears a tune. Will I wake up inside, or will it go by in a blur? Just what it's gonna take now if I wanna change the world.
Do you know heron run? It's when heron goes back to the source of the spring waters, and they go against the current.
Whoa.
Against the current. It's amazing, and it's natural phenomena. They jump over the rocks, and against all odds, like seagulls trying to eat them, but they go back where they came from. Against the current, against the stream. They go back and they lay eggs, and it's happening now actually. You should check it out.
Wow, it's called what?
Heron run.
Heron run.
Yeah.
That's what that is?
Yeah, it's amazing. So do you see yourself as that, against the current, against the kind of like Hollywood maybe philosophy, like numero uno, meaning there's no philosophy, die to self there. You know, it's all about me, myself, and I, and glorification, and you know, being celebrity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are wonderful people out there, but you are so kind and so humble, and you're about relationship and authenticity. Would it be against the current? It will be like really hard, right?
I think that analogy really works just for all of us. Like, you know, it's like the hero's journey. You go with the flow, which is, I think, the appropriate way of going about life is to surrender to the flow, right? And so you're going and you're swimming along, and that's how you go out on a journey, because you start at home and then you go on the journey. You don't want to stay home because then there's no growth. So you have to let the current take you, even though it's scary, because the further the current takes you, the further away you get from where you come from.
Right.
And so that can be scary, but that's the adventure of life. And there's no doubt about it that current is going to take you into territories that are very scary and hurtful and painful and fill in the blank. That's guaranteed if you go on that journey. But that's the adventure of life. And so I like the concept that you brought up of, once you're down the river, now your job is to sort of return home with all the lessons you learned. And but that sounds like really a lot of work too to get back home, because you have to go against where everything's taking you. So it's a really fun analogy. I'm gonna read about that.
A lot of young people experience at the age of 20 kind of like a setback. They look into the future, and their mentality is, when I reach certain age, or if only I have money, I will be happy. And basically they don't live in the now, but they live in the future in their minds. And what's happening to them, it's right now they see it as a setback. They don't live the life that they want to live. And I know you had an incredible story how you experienced setback, and you were walking in Hollywood in some park, and then you happened to meet the celebrity. His name is Justin Bieber.
Yeah. And
then from that moment something triggered, and things a little bit changed, and there was kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel for you in a way, right? So what would you say for young people or anyone who's watching and feeling like they're a failure, or they're missed an opportunity, or just any experience of setback and not knowing what the future holds? And what would you recommend to this kind of people?
I guess my advice would be, I've used this advice a lot with young actors who ask me for advice in their career, and I think that maybe it can be advice in a more general sense, which is that when things really started kind of working for me as an actor was when I read a book and basically it talked about not identifying as an actor. And so every up until then, you know, every audition I would go on, there'd be so much nerves involved because I'm not booking anything, I'm not working as an actor, and I'm here to do that. And, you know, I'm busting my butt working these manual labor jobs, you know, crazy hours, crazy physically demanding jobs, and living paycheck to paycheck. So all of that adds up, and you start to feel like if you don't get this job, you're a failure, you're not a good actor. All the negative talk starts coming in because you're so dependent on the results being successful. And so when you go into an audition with that mindset, the casting directors, the director, whoever's there, the producers are going to pick up on that energy. And really what they're looking for is the opposite. They even if an actor comes in and doesn't necessarily fit the part or like look the part, if their energy is like no fear and like they're just happy to be there and having fun, then they can then say like, well, they're not doing what we want, but I can tell that they can pretty much do anything because they're not afraid, they're malleable, we can work with this. Or they might just be like, maybe not this part, but I'm going to remember that actor because their energy is so positive and fun, and like they're not attached to the results, which is confidence essentially. That's what confidence is.
Nice.
And so when I started going to auditions and looking around at the other actors who were there, like a bunch of people who look like me, and I would be like, oh, I feel bad for all of these actors because they need this. They're actors and they need this. Thank goodness I'm not an actor. I'm just here to have fun in these circumstances and do what I want to do, not what I think they want me to do in this role. I want to go in there and do what I want to do and have fun with it for me. And then I get to walk away, and whatever the results are, they are. I'm not attached to that. So I think that energy did a lot for me, not only in acting but in life. And so I think that analogy works for anyone out there for whatever they're doing, is to sort of separate yourself from the results and stop judging yourself for your quote unquote performances. But you know, even no matter what it is, it's like, you know, it's about you finding that relationship with yourself and with God and with life.
So last thought is that about being present. You know, there was a guy, his name Billy de Miranda, and he was a fan of yours. And unexpectedly, you know, he passed away. And I just want to mention his name, that we remember him, and that you know, we never know. You can be young, you can be old. 1 in 1 statistics say all of us will die one day. You know. There's no escape from that. And so it's just seeing also your Instagram about the fan girl who got cancer, and you were Ava, her name?
Yeah, Ava Johnson.
Yeah, so when moments like that happen, when there is such tragedies like that happen, and what do you do? Like, how do you cope with difficulties like that, with losses like that? Yeah, I guess it's a sad note, but at the same time, that's what we just celebrated, resurrection.
Yeah.
And it's about hopelessness, death, but Jesus, there's hope. He resurrected, he overcame death, and that gives us hope. You know, that we are not here forever on this earth, and that's what gives us hope, right? So
I heard something once, you don't want to be, and this is going to sound like sort of demanding, but you don't want to be the person at the funeral who's crying on the shoulder. You want to be the shoulder for someone to cry on. And that concept is really all I can come up with in the moment, which isn't necessarily something that I feel like I'm even at. I'm not really there yet, I don't think, but I think that is a nice target to aim for when it comes to tragedy, because it's not to say that you can't be sad and you know, go through the gamut of emotions that comes with losing someone, but what do you do with tragedy? I guess the answer would be something like, well, what would Jesus do, right? He would be selfless in that moment, right? Which is, it's a tall order, but I suppose you want to be the one who is there to help the person who is equally as affected as you are, but you're choosing to be strength so that the people around you don't fall into that well. You know, you know, like they have a shoulder to cry on at the funeral, and I think that is potentially an appropriate response to loss, is to sort of try to heed the call of being there for your family or companions or whoever it is that needs a shoulder to cry on.
Mourn with those who mourn.
Yeah.
And being selfless. Like throughout this interview with you, I just hear this selfless like notes throughout it. I think it's truly, that's what Jesus was, unconditional love.
Yeah.
He was present, he was seeing individual in front of him. He wasn't seeing like crowd. Yes, he was seeing crowds, but like as you read the parables, he was very personable and relational, and that gives me hope that our God is like very relational and he cares about heart and relationships.
I think that's how we grow too, is to heed the call in the moments that are the most difficult, when we somehow manage to not make it about us. I think that is when we expand. What's when our souls and our hearts expand.
Yeah.
You know, like if this is the size of your soul or heart or whatever you want to call it, your spirit, and when a moment arises, an opportunity arises, and you somehow face it with such courage and make it a selfless moment instead of about you. And those opportunities, I think, come more frequently than we even realize. And I think that choice in that moment to surrender to and accept what's happening and to lift someone else up instead of yourself, I think there's an expansion that happens every time.
We rise by lifting each other. So
Yes,
when you lift
yes.
others, like you said, like,
Yeah, what's that quote about the boats? It's like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Sounds right.
Is that right? Yeah, I think. Yeah, if you be the one that lifts the tide, then everyone else will come up with you, and that's, if you walk around with that sort of selfless energy, then people feed off that, and then they're inspired to lift the tide themselves, and it's just a momentum sort of thing where you can plant a seed and then it expands, and that's how we're all connected in that way.
That's right. I love that. And I think this conversation was so enriching. Thank you so much for having coffee at Great Awakening.
Thank you, Ina.
Coffee House. That was the first interview for Changing the World TV.
Really? Ever?
Ever.
I'm honored.
Yay,
Cheers.
cheers.
I hope you guys keep doing conversations at Great Awakening.
Yay.
When I first got back here, I went to every coffee shop pretty much that I could find, and as soon as my sister took me here, I was sitting right over there, and Andrew brought me my first coffee, and I took the first sip, and I'll never forget.
Love at first sight.
Yeah, I looked at him and I was like, this is the best coffee I've ever had in Massachusetts.
Is it love at first sip?
Love at first sip. You guys should put that on the wall.
Cause changing the world starts with me and with you, but I would deaf to the noise, so our soul hears it tune. Will I wake up inside, or will it go by in a blur? Just what it's gonna take now if I wanna change the world.